dream. We just need to know where those things are. And I came across a gentleman, Jesse Lucero. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Lucero.
Lucero.
Right.
And he is not only a private real estate investor, but he's a marketing consultant as well, full of a lot of information. And I wanted him to share that with you today, because for many of you, you may have given up on that American dream of owning a home. But one of the things that people, I don't think, have paid a lot of attention to since the economy took the turn that it did, and that's lease option, more popularly known as rent to own. And oftentimes people will see an advertisement for that and sort of just gloss over it and think, oh, I don't know what that is. But Jesse can explain all of that to you, and he works very closely with a real estate broker, AJ, out of California. And these guys have phenomenal information. And you know, when the stimulus was instituted, we kept talking about um, loan modifications and foreclosures and being underwater and all of those things. And sometimes it was difficult for us to keep up with it. So we kind of backed away from that for a while. But I want to touch on that today because I think it's one of the hopeful things that we can talk about and you can look forward to. Now, you may or may not know, but 40% of Vegas homeowners are underwater still, one of the highest in the nation. But things are improving, and we're going to talk about that this morning. So I want to say good morning to Jesse. How are you this morning?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us. Jesse's son is in here with us, Jesse Jr. Good morning, Jesse.
Good morning.
He's only 12 years old, but I have a feeling he probably has a lot of knowledge about his dad's area of work. And, you know, real estate is one of those careers. Many of us thought about it, didn't know whether we could do it. But to hear you talk about all of the things that you do, Jesse, it's exciting to hear that there are options out there for people, but they just sort of have given up and thought, well, you know, there's so many homes available that investors have bought, I might as well just rent one. Talk to us. Tell us what some of the general rules and policies are when it comes to lease options.
Well, first of all, Patricia, thank you so much for having me on your
You're
show.
very welcome.
I'm very honored, very happy to be here.
Thank you.
And just to say this, to start the show, my wife said don't come back without a picture. So she said, I don't care if it's raining out there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Well, we're very excited. I work with AJ Modig, and he's a real estate broker. He works out of California, and he's also located here in Nevada, in Las Vegas. We've been working together for a while now, and we're very excited. We have properties out there that we want to get to people that have had an unfortunate circumstance with the economy, with their property going underwater, falling behind payments, anything like that. We have solutions for everyone, and not only is it for the average consumer out there, but we also help other people such as realtors, other investors, developers as well, and we use what's called the lease option.
Well, tell us, first of all, how is the lease option better for you than to just rent? And talk to us about what the qualifying factors are for those who may think it's out of reach for them.
Well, a lease option, it's an agreement between you and the seller, where you're going to be making an agreement where you're going to buy the property. Okay, it's a lot cheaper than getting a mortgage. Okay, the qualifying factors are very simple, very easy to qualify for these type of property. What it's required is it's two parts. It's the rental agreement that makes the lease option, and that sets the terms, the rent, and then there's the other part, which is the option agreement. And that right there is what makes the magic of you being able to buy the property.
Now, before you go any further, one of the first things that crossed my mind when you talk about a lease option and that contract, is that an agreement that the two parties involved in the contract kind of agree upon and make up on their own, or are there some standards that are involved on every lease option?
It's pretty much it varies.
So
It's case by case.
flexible?
Right.
Oh,
It's case
okay.
by case. We can work around a buyer. We set the terms that will be of a benefit to the person that's buying.
So
much.
now, talk to me about those who may have had a bankruptcy, got poor credit, maybe not that high of an income. What are some of the factors involved that you wouldn't qualify for buying a home, but you could as under a lease option?
Well, some of the factors are there. We don't check credit. We do check credit for it just to ensure that they will be able to buy in a certain amount of time. Usually we do about a 2-year term on our lease option. Okay. So let's say you had a bankruptcy and you just filed last week. Well, there is a 2-year discharge period that you need to at least wait to be able to buy, but not with us. Okay, we can work with you and just give you a longer term on the lease option, so that by the time your bankruptcy discharges, you'll be able to qualify for a mortgage.
Really? So now, if I owned a home that I was renting, could I enter that lease option with the tenant without a realtor being involved, or is it something that we would have to use an agent to do?
You could use an agent. I usually use attorneys and escrow companies to protect everyone, and that's probably my best attribute to my program is that everybody's protected. All the contracts are unilateral, where the person that came into agreement with the seller is obligated to sell the property to him.
Now, does it work similar to when you lease a car? When you say that option is there, if you decide after the 2 or 3 years that you're under the lease option not to buy, that's not a negative.
No.
As far as you're concerned as a tenant, you can either walk away or you can buy the property.
That is correct.
And if you decide to buy the property, is there a large amount that you have to pay down to remain in that property and buy it?
Well, when you first enter into the agreement, what you do is it's called an option money. You give option money for the property. It's usually about 3 to 5% of the sales price, and that money is held. And when you decide to exercise your option, that is applied as a down payment with the mortgage company.
Now, when you say that money is held, is that over and above the market price of the rent each month, or is it a lump sum you give when you enter into the contract?
It's a lump sum you put up front.
And when you set up that contract, are you paying more than you ordinarily would to rent that property, so that some of that money is going towards the cost of purchase?
You do. You pay a little bit more, but here's another thing. When you rent a property, your landlord does not give you any rent credits like a lease option would.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They're not going to help you to try to pay off buy a house. They're not going to do that. They're just getting rich.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So
you're paying the mortgage.
Exactly, you're paying their mortgage. So when you do a lease option, for example, we have a property right now that if you were to enter into our agreement, we give you 50% of the rent back to the down payment.
Really?
Yeah. So it's added to the lease option that you're putting down.
So now, what are the disadvantages?
The disadvantages are when you enter into an agreement with us, we disclose everything up front. We're going to let you know this is how your credit looks. These are the steps that you need to take. We're going to set you up with a mortgage broker to determine if you can buy in 2 years and if you can afford our property in 2 years. Because we don't want you to lose at the end of 2 years. We set you up with a credit coach that's going to guide you through the process. One of the disadvantages are if you don't follow the direction of our credit coach and follow the advice, you are going to lose at the end. If you put your option money, it's non-refundable, and you won't be getting it back. That's a disadvantage there.
That's a disadvantage for the leasee.
Right.
And there's no option for the person that owns the property to not sell it at the end of that 2-year contract. They are bound by that
They are
contract and
bound.
they must sell it. There's no way out of
There's
that.
no way out of it. What we do is we record the contract in the city recorder's office to ensure that a lien is placed on the property for the option and sale of the house.
It's almost as though there's credit repair going on as you're
Yes.
renting. So I can't help but wonder, is it a situation where not enough people know about that, or is it that people just don't know that they qualify?
I think a lot of people don't know about it. I do get tons of calls every day, and most of them are just lost. Because here's the thing, out there they're not going to talk about creative solutions because banking is big business.
Yeah.
You go get a mortgage and you pay the bank, you pay the high interest rates. So it's either you qualify or you don't. That's the mentality that people have out there. I can't approve for an FHA loan right now. I can't buy. And what happens? You're there stuck. You just keep thinking of I want to buy one day, but you never do anything.
Yeah.
And nobody helps you. Your landlord's not helping you. So I think if more people would know about these type of transactions with a lease option, lease purchase, rent to own, I think more people would really do their research. They would study the agreements before they go into them, and they would take advantage.
647-3688 if you have any questions and you'd like to call Jesse. He's here to answer your questions about a lease option. And there are so many people renting here, and this has to be one of the highest markets in the nation because there were so many investors buying during the boom, renting these properties out. So I just can't imagine that there are all of these tenants out there renting and not knowing that they probably will qualify for a lease option.
Right.
Now, let me ask you this. If you have had a property that you've sold under a short sale, how does that affect your credit, and are those people eligible for the lease option as well?
They are eligible. Actually, there was a change in FHA regulation back in September, where they changed the guideline. Instead of if you were to have a foreclosure or short sale on your credit, you were to wait 2 to 5 years back then. That was the regulation, all depending on where you lived. Now it's a year.
Just a year.
Yeah, so if we get you one of these 2-year lease options, we give you enough time to fix your credit, create some credit history, and then we help you get approved with our mortgage brokers.
So, given what the average home price is today, and I assume you know what that is, give us a ballpark figure of what people are paying down to enter into a lease option.
It's 3% of the sales price.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 to 5%, all depending on the type of property it is.
Yeah, see, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
And can you do that? Let's say it was a fourplex. Could you enter into a lease option buying multiple dwellings like that, or does it just have to be a single?
It's done with commercial real estate as well. Yeah.
Wow. 647-3688. Let's take a phone call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Good morning, caller. 647-3688. If we've disconnected you, give us a call back. We're sitting here with Jesse Lucero, and he's talking to us about some of the options that are available to people. We used to hear about first-time home buyers. How is that different than this lease option? If you qualify for one, would you necessarily qualify for the other?
Well, the lease option is just an introduction to getting into a mortgage.
Okay.
So if you're a first-time home buyer out there, FHA is 3% down to qualify. All we do is we get into an agreement. You put down your option money of 3%. You pay a few fees. With us, you pay an attorney fee, just to ensure that you're protected. We research the title, make sure there's no other liens, and the property does belong to the person that's selling it.
Right.
That's a big one right there. And And throughout the term of the lease option, we're working with you, and we'll place you in that first-time home buyers program.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
we have mortgage brokers that'll place you into that, and the rates are phenomenal, really low
So
rates.
I would think then it probably isn't a good idea to enter into a lease option or rent to own if you don't have an agent or an attorney involved,
Correct.
because you may get caught up in the end.
Yep. There has been situations in other states that I've heard about
Mm-hmm.
where people, homeowners, were taking advantage of buyers, and they knew they didn't qualify for their house, and they would sell them their house on a lease option.
Oh.
Nothing was verified. Other situations, people bought houses and the house didn't even belong to the guy that was selling it.
Exactly.
It's
And
awful.
well, and I would guess that you're more likely to be a victim of that if you're
Exactly.
renting than buying,
Right.
because there were a lot. See, there are so many properties here that are owned by people who live out of state
Correct.
that, in fact, there was just a news story last night. I was surprised that this was going on right here in Las Vegas, because I've heard of this happening across the country. But for some reason, I thought our landlord tenant laws pretty much protected homeowners from this. But there was a guy here locally who had a home, beautiful home. I don't know what part of town it was in, but it was a beautiful home um, that he was going to sell. He had already bought his new home and moved into it. And he went by to check on his home, opened up the garage, there was a car in it, used the key, went in the house. There's a guy in the living room on the couch who had the nerve to say to him, "Who are you?" And the guy said, "Who am I? Who are you? This is my house." Do you know he still has not been able to get this guy out of the house?
He's a squatter, huh?
But I'm not understanding. You know, I used to work as an investigator for the state of Nevada, and we enforced landlord-tenant law, and you can get a 5-day quitter pay. You can get the 3-day nuisance, or a 30-day without any reason at all. Why is it? I don't expect you to know off the top of your head, but I can't believe that this guy said it's taking a minimum of 2 months to get a squatter out of your property, and it has already been 2 months, and this guy has been able to appeal the decision twice. I can't imagine what your argument could be when you're not supposed to be there. But they said the biggest legal hurdle is you're trying to evict someone based on a lease that does not exist.
Wow.
That's crazy to me. I don't know how that
Yeah, I wouldn't
happens.
know anything about it. I do know there's squatter laws out there, and
Wow. So
I
yeah,
do.
you do want to make sure
Yeah.
that you have somebody
You do.
involved,
And you check their ID. Hey, is
exactly.
that your house?
The most important thing, like you said, is to make sure they really do own the property. 647-3688. We're going to go to the phone lines and take a couple of calls. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. How you doing?
Okay. How are you?
Listen, my question to Jesse is what I'm trying to understand now. So his company, do they go out and buy properties and so forth, and then does a person get into his program and then they select from houses, or how do they do, or does an individual go out and search for a home, or what?
Well, we keep an inventory of properties that my partner and I, AJ, here in town, that he owns, and what we do is if we have a property that you like, we'll put you in that property. But let's say that you're looking for, I don't know, a third bathroom or something like that, and you really want to make sure that you get something you really like. We also have a program where we help you find a property. We go out there and we consult you. We negotiate for you, and we find these properties for you. And we include our attorneys, we include our title company, and we go ahead and you sign a contract. You keep the house.
And so, like, if I want to, if there was a particular area that I wanted to move into, I would contact you guys and say, yeah, well, I'm interested, like maybe in the northwest area part of town, and basically, if you guys have any properties over there, or let's say I'm driving by and I see a house there that's for rent and so forth, and then I get, get the phone numbers and so forth, and I say, okay, well, I'm interested in this particular house. Is that something that you guys do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we actually have an email. I have a template where you could just send that and they would contact us right away, and we would take care of everything for you.
And then just one other question. You said that it costs a little bit more when you have a lease to buy option. Um, so like compared to a rent for maybe 2,000 or maybe $1,500, how much more would the lease option be?
Um,
Like the
usually it'll be about 100 or two or 300 more per month. But you got to realize also that's money that if the property is on a program where you will get rent credits, that money does come back to you, and it
I
comes
see.
back to you in form of it's applied towards the option money, so that when you buy the property, you have some more dollars for you to buy.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your call. 647-3688. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Oh, good morning. I'm in the exact situation that you all were just talking about earlier. I make really, really good money, and I'm renting. And I met with a gentleman a couple of weeks ago to look at a property, and it said rent to own. And he was speaking about, what you were talking about earlier, but I just didn't know. I just felt lost. And I loved the house, and he wanted to meet and, and take my money, and I just wasn't sure. I just didn't feel safe about it. And I looked him up on their business bureau. And I didn't find anything, but I just didn't know. And I just said, I'm not going to do this without getting information because lack of knowledge. And so now into your radio show, I'm for you all. So I'll get your number and be contacting you.
See, that makes a lot of sense to me because after I listened and read some of the things that Jesse has been posting, it's one thing to sign the lease. You feel like you understand that process, and you know that there are courts to protect you. But when it comes to the lease option, it's a contract, and you don't. I think the public just doesn't know, and you're afraid to sign a contract because you don't understand the particulars.
And you hear
Jesse.
about so many people getting ripped off.
Exactly.
And yes. And I'm just like, so I'm glad I'm listening to this show because I will be contacting you for sure.
Let's give a number, Jesse, too, for people that are listening.
702-551-3125. Again, 702-551-3125.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, caller. Thank you. Have you done any workshops?
No, not yet.
That might not be a bad idea. I could just see someone, as she just said, looking at a house, you fall in love with it, you want to buy it, and as soon as they start talking lease option, you're hearing these terms. You hear contract. We all get nervous when you start talking about a contract. You don't know what's going to happen at the end of the 2 years. And so people might get a little nervous and walk away. Whereas if there was, just a workshop where people can get some of the basics and they understand that they need to have a realtor, an investor, an attorney, someone such as yourself involved, then they might feel more comfortable about it. But we've been hearing rent to own for years, and I think people
Right.
just don't know that much
It's
about
been
it.
around since the 60s.
Has it been that
Yeah,
long?
it's been that long.
Wow.
But I would say as advice to everyone out there, if you're gonna get into one of these agreements with a seller, um, make sure you tell them I want to include an attorney. I want to include an escrow company because I want to make my payments to the escrow company to ensure that the payments are applied if there is an existing mortgage, that it's taken care of. Because it's been, come on, we live in Las Vegas, and there's a lot of gamblers out there, so you never know if your payment is being spent at the Bellagio,
Yeah,
so you need to have protection. You need to protect yourself that way.
So the important thing, I hadn't even thought of it till you just said that, is to make sure that those payments are being made to the escrow company because you want them applied the way
Right.
that contract has said they're going to be applied. Who pays for the attorney?
You will pay for an attorney, and the seller pays the other half.
So you split the cost
Right.
of the attorney?
With me, it's only $500 that it's split. It's $250
okay.
for the buyer and $250 for the seller.
Oh, see, now that's important as well. 647-3688 if you'd like to call in. And we're talking about the lease option. Let me ask you, which is a better opportunity for the leasee? Would it be the lease option or the second chance buyer program?
I would say if you qualify for the second chance buyer program,
Uh-huh.
go ahead and take advantage of it.
Okay.
Okay. If you don't qualify for it, then the best bet is for you to go the lease option route.
Are you familiar with some of the hardship programs that are available out there for people?
Not at this moment. That actually would be AJ,
Uh-huh.
who's really familiar with it.
Okay, well, and we're hoping to hear from AJ before this half hour is up. Um, I was surprised to see that story that came out this week about how many homeowners are still underwater because it's much better than it was a year ago. It
Right.
was like, I don't know, 60, 70%. But I'm surprised that we're still leading in the nation, even with all of the improvements.
Right.
How do you get out from under that? Is there a way to do it without it um, damaging your credit?
There is. There is. Actually, I have a program called the assignment program, and it helps people that are in a situation where they own a home that has no equity or they are slightly upside down. We find solutions for them using lease options as well.
Now, for those who have no equity, um, what are some of the options? Is that just a short sale, or is there a way to get out from under it? And then the second question would be, is a short sale always as is, or do you need to be doing something with your property before you try to sell it?
Well, you need to be proactive with when you do a short sale.
Mm-hmm.
You need to keep close communication with your bank, unless you just want to have a real estate agent do the paperwork for you. But when you do a short sale on these properties, it does go against your credit. Okay. It does affect your ability to buy again in the
Mm-hmm.
future.
Mm-hmm.
So just be aware that it will go on credit. What they're gonna do is the bank's gonna approve a certain price where they're gonna allow an investor or whoever's coming in to buy it for that price, and the rest of the debt will be wiped off.
Now, do you have to show a hardship, or do you
Absolutely.
just need to be behind?
No, you do need to show some type of hardship as
Uh-huh.
well. And also, when you're behind, the banks seem to listen more than when you're not.
When you're not.
Right. I'm
And
not advising for you to fall behind on your
right.
payment, but it's I've seen that a lot of the time.
Well, and a few years ago, that was one of the discussions we had many times when I was doing the stimulus show, is that people were being advised to get
By
behind,
the banks, yeah.
yeah, because they were underwater. So, and I probably should have started with you explaining to people exactly what a short sale is.
Hmm.
Can you tell them?
Well, a short sale is just simple as that. It's you sell your property for less than what you owe, and you come into agreement with your bank, and what they do is they negotiate a price. You need to have a buyer that's going to be ready for you to take over the property and make an offer on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens after that is you just wait around for the bank to approve that.
So you have to find the buyer. You've got to make sure somebody is.
Well, if you have one, also if you have a real estate agent that can help you with that, they usually have tons of buyers out there. They can be ready to submit
Now,
offers.
how often would the bank reject that person's offer?
I'm not sure. It happens a lot.
Does it
It
really?
does, yeah. They reject the offers or they counter offer and they want more money for it, or what it's by
Because
whatever.
yeah, the bank's the one that's losing the money. So I would imagine that it's got to be somewhat reasonable before they would accept it, because that's determining how much they lose, right?
Right, right.
So how long after a short sale is it that you're eligible to buy again?
Well, with new guidelines that have come out,
Mm-hmm.
FHA is only asking a year.
Really?
Right. They what I see, they are asking for a larger down payment when you're buying now
Uh-huh.
because of that situation on your credit, but you can buy after 12 months.
Um, there were a couple of programs, and I don't know whether you're familiar with them, but AJ was talking about one of the programs called, I think they called it HARP. Are you familiar with that?
No, I wouldn't be.
It's the Home Affordable Refinance Program, and I think it requires Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And I was going to ask you, how can a homeowner be sure that their loan falls under one of those two?
I'm not sure about
You're
that
not
one.
sure about
That
that?
would be, that's AJ, my
And
partner.
in fact, I was telling AJ I wanted to have you guys come back. There were some other topics that I know people, when it comes to buying and selling, people want to talk about, and we didn't have all of the information on them. But there was one program that came up that was being discussed about a year ago in North Las Vegas, and it was called the government seizure, the eminent domain. But it was a new program. It started, I believe, in Oakland, maybe Richmond, and it spread across the country. It's been controversial, and it's eminent domain through a series of quick transactions, and it allows homeowners to reduce payment and avoid foreclosure. But other people, the controversy was that people felt that critics were saying that it's taken advantage of the poor, and it was just outright theft. And so from what I understand, North Las Vegas just dropped that whole idea.
Right.
But there's a lot of cities across the country that are trying to decide whether or not that's an option they want. And I know it's been popular in Northern California, and so there's a lot of homeowners that are underwater that have been asking about that, and I've gotten calls about that. But I don't think that's available here in Nevada. Do you know?
I'm not sure about that one. You know, if you guys call me, anybody out there that's interested in that information,
Okay.
I can set up where to AJ will answer every one of those questions
Yeah.
for you, because he's a really good expert on that.
And it sounds to me like the short sale is the better option anyway.
Right.
Because not only are you able to buy again, you can satisfy the bank so that they can get some of what they're due,
Right.
and your credit isn't completely damaged by that. But when a landlord offers that lease to own option, it's important that you make sure, if you're going to, as the caller was saying, if you're going to enter into that agreement, that you've got an attorney, that money is paid to escrow,
Right.
so that you're protected. 647-3688 if you'd like to call in and talk with Jesse about that. Are there any other programs out there that those who run into some financial difficulty can take advantage of?
Well, mostly what I use here is just the lease option program. And I do a lot of first-time home buyers. That's my favorite out there.
The first-time home
Yeah, because
buyer?
the rates are cheap, and it's you only pay 3% of the purchase price, so it works amazing.
And so the first-time home buyer is someone who's not had credit issues that the person who gets the lease option has had. Is that basically the difference? Why would you do a lease option if you qualify for the first-time home
Exactly.
buyer?
Yeah.
So the difference, I would assume, is
Right.
your credit or your income or both.
Right. They ask for at least 2 years income that supports the purchase price that you're buying. They also ask that you have a minimum credit at least. Not no collections, not a lot of collections on there. And lately it's been a little tough to get into that program, and there's a lot of controversy out there where they're looking to make some changes with it. But for the meantime, it's really simple to approve for that type of mortgage, and it's backed up by the Federal Housing Administration.
What is the basically, or just ballpark, what is the credit score that people should have when they apply for the?
Usually it's over 620 and above for that type of program. Also, the less credit you have, the more down payment that you'll be asked to put down. So
I would have thought that credit score would be higher than 620 required.
There's some companies out there that we work with that
Really?
that'll take that low score.
So now, for those who may not want to look for the lease option, but they're trying to just get their credit in order so that they can buy a home, what are some of the major difficulties for people in terms of credit? What are the things that you would advise people to avoid or to start to do to get themselves ready to be qualified to buy a home?
Well, one of the things that I see a lot is credit cards.
Credit cards,
Credit
really?
cards. Yeah, I see a lot of credit cards where um, if if they have a credit card for let's say $1,000 credit limit,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, Macy's, wherever it is, and you charge $1,000 on it, the credit system software does not look at that as a luxury. It looks at it as if you're in need to use that money, so they lower your credit score.
Really?
Right. So if you only charge your credit card 50% is the most that I would say every month, and then make your payments on time,
Mm-hmm.
it's most likely that your credit will start getting up there.
Because they're assuming
Right.
that that credit card is what you need to get by rather
That's what they
than
tell you.
wow.
That's what they
See,
tell
I
you.
avoid them at all costs.
Right.
I just don't. That is just a crazy vicious cycle you
Right.
can't get out of. But I've never heard that before, that the creditors will assume that that's how
You're living.
you're living
Right.
rather than it's your luxury.
Right, right. So another one that I see out there is I'll get a nice family that wants to buy, and somebody told them, well, you gotta go build credit. And the day that they meet me is the day that they bought 3 cars at the dealership. So you can't build credit
That's
that
not
way.
going to work.
You're
That,
increasing your debt, so it
t-
doesn't help.
tell the listeners what, in your opinion, is the best way for them to, if they don't have a lot of credit, what's the best way for them to establish it so it doesn't end up being, of course, you got to pay it, but pay your bills, but what kind of credit is the best way to establish good credit without it being a red mark?
Well, credit cards are great. They're revolving credit that
Hmm.
just generates your credit score every month, compared to what a furniture store credit line would be,
Hmm.
such as you're making payments on a vehicle. That doesn't create a lot of credit for you. But a credit card does. It's
Uh-huh.
just strange the way it does it. It just generates with the softwares out there in the FICO and Equifax and all that. But you need to use your credit card. If you just use it for gas, make sure you pay it off um, the next month.
Uh-huh.
Okay. If you're using your credit card for groceries, make sure you pay it off the next month.
Hmm.
And don't go over that 50% limit. If
Oh,
it don't even though you have $1,000, don't use all of it,
yeah.
because it is gonna hurt you. Okay. Another one is, I would say, get with one of our credit coaches, because there's times when you say, well, I had a collection from the UMC that was 7 years ago and I want to take care of it. I'm a great person. I want to pay that off. Well, what you don't know is that you just reminded Equifax, you had a collection back there. Let's update that. So if your credit score was up there and you paid a collection that was old from back then,
Hmm.
they're going to update it as a collection today. So it'll drop
So,
your score.
so now, I don't know if you want to answer this. So now, what would you advise the person to do if their credit score is up there and their conscience is bothering them because they know that they didn't pay that bill 7, 8 years ago?
Right.
Are you saying just leave it alone until someone asks
I
them?
would say give us a call so that we could analyze that, because you may be hurting
Really?
yourself. Even though
Really?
you're trying to take care of what's your responsibility, you may be hurting yourself.
That's
And there's other
amazing.
ways to take care of that as well. Some ways that we use is we pay it, but we ask the company delete it off the credit. That's one
Oh,
thing that we do. So
huh. So how often do you advise people to see a credit counselor? It sounds to me like it isn't just a matter of paying the bills, but if you don't understand the system and how it works, you could be in, as you say, in good faith, running around paying things
right.
and making matters worse for yourself. So people, do you think that people should just on a regular basis, maybe once every 4 or 5 years, talk to a credit counselor? How do you stay on top
I
of that?
I, I would say at least once a year, because the credit companies do give you that right to check your credit for free
Hmm.
and without taking points off your credit at least once a year. And it's really simple. You just go online, or you can go to Equifax, give them a call, and request a copy of it. And you want to do that at least every year, because identity theft out there,
Right.
you never know if you're actually paying for a yacht somewhere else and you're not even enjoying that. Somebody could be using your credit. So you need to make sure that you stay on top of your credit scores, make sure that everything looks good on that.
How often are you coming across people who have really been victims of identity
Oh,
theft?
all the time.
You're
I see
kidding
it all the
me.
time, yeah.
And is it really as hard to get out from under that? And what about these companies? You see commercials where you can pay them and they protect your credit for you.
Well, all they do is call you when somebody's using your credit, which is good.
Is it?
It's a good thing, but they don't necessarily protect you 100% as they say they do.
That's unbelievable.
Right.
How? And so how do you? What would be your advice to people to protect themselves before they get in trouble?
Um, One thing that I done with my kids is you can put an alert where you just shut down the credit on them.
When
So-
they're minors.
Yeah, you could do
Because
that.
people,
Yeah. You if you're active duty, there's if you call the credit bureaus, you let them know that you're active duty and that they need to just freeze your credit.
Oh,
That's one thing.
yeah.
That way, if anybody takes your identity, they can't use it.
Now, what about those who may have parents or other relatives that are deceased, and do they even need to be concerned with whether or not those Social Security numbers are being used?
Well, not really. I think
Okay,
it's too
Jesse.
late by then.
But you hear that a
You
lot.
do hear
that
about
that's-
it. Yeah.
But I guess if they're not, if they're deceased, it's not a problem with them. But oftentimes, um, and we saw this, a couple of
seen
months
that,
ago,
yeah.
that the adult children can be held responsible for the debt of the deceased parent. So if somebody steals that credit card number, that could be a problem.
I believe it only applies, and I know this by experience because of my grandparents. When my grandfather died, he had a lot of credit card debt with Fingerhut. He just loved Fingerhut.
That's funny.
And my parents they were trying to hold him responsible for it,
Uh-huh.
but because he never put them on the applications, they weren't responsible. But they learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
They had paid $10,000 towards it already,
Oh,
and they didn't have to. So if it's something that the deceased person got into before he passed away, then that is credit that the next person, maybe the spouse, is going to be responsible for it. But if it's in terms of identity theft,
uh-huh.
and maybe you're getting the letters, all you probably could do is just call the company and say, hey,
Yeah. Copy the death certificate on it.
here's a copy. You need to take care of that.
I don't want to forget. I want to have you give your phone number again, because with all of this conversation,
Right.
people probably have some questions. So give them your phone number again.
It's 702-551-3125. 702-551-3125.
And one of the things that I was going to remind people as well, and we saw this recently in the news, is if you've opened up savings accounts or college accounts for your minor children, that's another issue, because when their name and your name are on the same account, then that can be a problem later on if there's a judgment or court action against you in terms of credit as well.
Mm.
So that was, in fact, I believe there was a case here locally that went all the way to the state Supreme Court, because these kids had been the parents had opened up an account for them years ago. They never used it, but their name was on the account. And when the parents passed away, they were responsible for the debt, and the creditor went in and petitioned the court, and the court took the entire account. And
Wow.
yeah, because they had both names on it all
Wow.
of those years.
That's
So
sad.
there's and the laws change over time, and if it's not anything, if you've not been involved in probate, or you're just not haven't had any of those concerns, you're not paying attention to how those laws are changing over time until something hits you.
Right.
And as you were saying with your parents, and by then you're hiring attorneys and doing everything you can to get out from under. So you got to be careful about having those joint accounts with your minor children, with yourself as well. 647-3688 if you'd like to call in. We just have a few more minutes, and I was so glad that you were able to talk to people about the lease option. There are so many people out here renting. It's just unbelievable. And they may do the short sale and go right into a rental, and thinking that the best way to repair their credit is to stay there in that property, right, so that they're not moving around, and that's just money out the window.
It is.
That's unbelievable.
That
is unbelievable. 647-3688 if you'd like to call in. If not, you can give Jesse a call if you want to have a private conversation with him. 551-3125. And hopefully when we bring you back, AJ will be with us as well, because a lot of people have been asking about that HARP program.
Actually, let me just say this to everyone out there. I work with AJ and his group of investors as well, and he works out of California, and I know that there's I don't know the details, but there is programs out there in California right now where you can buy back your property, and he has all the details. He just showed them to me about 2 hours before we came on through email, and I don't have the details. But if you give us a call, AJ's a fantastic guy to work with.
Yeah.
He laughs because I call him the magician of real estate investing. He has a great heart. He's out there to help everyone, and of course make a profit with these properties. So feel free to call us anytime. We're here to help.
Yeah, AJ, it's fun to talk with him. He's got so much information.
Oh, yes.
It's just amazing how much you can learn talking to AJ. Is there any other way to, I hate to use the word dump, but to get rid of an underwater home other than a short sale?
There is there is other ways as well. You can let it foreclose. You can try to rent it out. You can do a lease option on it and just have somebody just take over and cash you out at the end of the term. So
I guess that would be the same way, and kind of saves your
right.
credit. And
right, we'll take care of the mortgage, and we'll have somebody, nice family, live there in the property. So
I hadn't thought of that when it came to the lease option, but I think people panic and just sort of give up. I think it's better now, but a couple of years ago, when it was just it's like we woke up one morning and the entire housing industry crashed and people didn't know what to do, and people were being advised. I remember the debates among those in the real estate industry